Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State, also live on YouTube and on Facebook. We're having the crucial conversations that Erie needs, and it is National Child Abuse Prevention Month. And here to note this and to help us through what we can do to make our community safer for children is Michael Gaines. He's the executive director at the Bradley H. Foulk Children's Advocacy Center of Erie County. Michael, good to see you. Appreciate you coming back on.
I'm delighted to be here. Thanks, Joel, for asking me. And it's always good to be able to speak with you and with our listening audience.
All righty, let's review what you all do at the Children's Advocacy Center, because it is really important work.
The Children's Advocacy Center, which we refer to often as the CAC, is a safe, child-friendly place where children come once they've disclosed or they're suspected to having been abused, and there's a law enforcement or a child protective services investigation taking place. They come to us in order that they may tell their story to a well-trained interviewer who knows how to speak with children on the appropriate level depending on their age range. And also, at the same time, their parents or guardians are given information on helps in the community, from medical to mental health to victim services, how that the children and the family might be supported through what is a very troubling and perhaps terrifying time in their lives.
Here we are in 2026, right? There are those narratives of where abuse came from. Over the course of our history, in especially in the 20th century, has that considerably changed in our modern era of where abuse will sometimes come from?
Honestly, probably not. Okay. It seems that most abuse takes place within a family setting, within a setting of known people to the child and the family, somebody who's trusted, perhaps a relative, a parent, a grandparent, somebody who is a close family friend. Most abuse takes place in a setting like that. That's what's kind of different is saying that. I know when I was a child, you never heard that. What you heard was, watch out for the stranger in the park. Don't take candy from somebody you didn't know.
The big white van driving down.
All those sort of things, and which is still good advice, because there are people like that out there, but they make up less than 10% of the actual sources of abuse that we see, and that nationally, if you look at the national statistics, that's what is found nationally, that most abuse is from somebody the child and family knows and trusts, perhaps even the parents themselves.
Do you folks get into where the situation where brand new parents or what have you, or very stressful situations, and so things like shaking babies, and is that something that you get into?
We actually do. We have a program. It's a fairly new program to us. We brought it to Erie County here really about a year and a half ago, called the Period of Purple Crying program. And what that is to try to help educate any parent. This is not focused at somebody who we think might be an abuser. This is any parent. That babies sometimes cry for no apparent reason, unconsolably, enough to drive you, right off your edge of your seat. If in the old days they called it colic.
Yeah, sure.
Today they don't use that term so much, but these babies they cry, and so what do? How do you respond? And if you don't have a lot of experience with babies, it can be even worse, because then you start feeling like you're doing something wrong, that there's something else you should be doing. You get frustrated. That's when accidents, that's when people, lose their cool and something happens that hurts a child. So this program, it's interesting. It's really only about an hour long. We have an educator who is trained to educate new parents, and the education can happen before the child is born, We say up until the first 6 months. If you've gotten that far, then it's probably not going to, that crying's not going to happen that way. But it could be up to 2 years. But first 6 months is the most critical. Anyway, our educator will meet with them either virtually or in person, and they go through this training, and they're given an app for their phone, so they can share the information with someone who might be watching the child for them, a babysitter, a relative friend, but just to teach them strategies. Here's what to expect. When the child does this, don't lose your cool. Put the child in a safe place. Walk a little away. Give yourself a little bit of a break. Decompress, so that we don't get things like shaken baby injuries or other those sort of things. So sadly, we still see those. In the last several years, there's been a number of cases in Erie County. You're not going to hear about them in the news or anything because they aren't charged. People don't intend to do that. I mean,
we have had some infant deaths, though, that have been in the news for sure.
Oh, indeed. Yeah. And some of those have been charged. Again, I've seen shaken baby injury, if they're egregious, be charged. But a lot of times it's just a tragic.
Sure.
Somebody makes a mistake, spur of a moment. Again, it's not up to us who's charged or not, but our idea is simply to try to say, let's see if we can learn how not to react in the first place.
There's a process that will happen if you suspect child abuse of your child, and the first step, my understanding is to report it on Childline. Can you go through this with us?
Of course, and it is. Childline is there. The state of Pennsylvania has established that. It's been there a number of years for people to report suspected cases of child abuse. It could be your child. It could be somebody else's child. It could be, you can be a reporter for any case, and as long as it's done in good faith, you are protected from any liability if you're mistaken.
Well, as a volunteer, some of us are mandatory reporters, right?
And you absolutely are. Volunteers or employees of certain agencies, school teachers, people who work in childcare, people who work in camps for the summer, your coaches, your clergy people. You'd be surprised the list of people that the state law says are mandated reporters. Not to be more, but even funeral directors are mandated reporters. Only because they might see the results of abuse at a bad time.
Yeah, well, it was always said, make the call. Right. It's not yours to judge whether it's worthy of the call. Let the law enforcement, let the counselors figure that out.
Absolutely. We always say, your job is to call. Somebody else's job is to determine whether it's real or not.
Right.
You don't need to know that. It's we say you're not an investigator, you're a reporter. And how do you do that? Well, there's several ways. 1-800-932-0313 is the phone number for Childline. It's 1-800-932-0313. Or online, one can go to keepkidssafe.pa.gov, keepkidssafe.pa.gov, and can report that way. When those reports are made, it goes into a central office in Harrisburg and is redirected back out to the county. And both the County Child Protective Services people, we call them OCY, and the local law enforcement, whatever the jurisdiction the law might be, get these reports. And then depending on the nature of the report, the law says who investigates. It could be both agencies. It could be one or the other, depending on what the nature of the situation is.
Is OCY on like a 24-hour call situation?
Absolutely.
They are.
Oh, yes. There's always somebody available.
Interesting. Okay.
It's the second or third shift gets called out quite often. Oftentimes, people will rather than making those calls, if they're afraid something happened to their child, we do what most of us think about when your child is perhaps injured. You scoop them up and take them off to the emergency room, and then the OCY and the law enforcement will report to the emergency room to find out what happened. If that word gets to them that quickly.
At some point, there may be an interview to go through that process, yeah.
So if in that initial, we call it minimal facts finding moment for Child Protective Services or the police, and they determine that there might be more to this, then what our Erie County policy is that they are to refer the child to the Children's Advocacy Center for one of our interviews. We have, as I said, trained interviewers who know how to speak to children in a way that won't traumatize them, in a way that is neutral fact finding. We don't go in with a preconceived idea. If it happened or didn't, we just want to get the facts from the child. And our interviewer follows a protocol that they've been trained in. Watching the interview are people from law enforcement, people from Child Protective Services, and closed circuit television, could be prosecutors even if it's a serious enough case. And they will then hear and record what happened. The interview is video and audio recorded, but they will take down all that information, and they'll make a determination of whether there's something to investigate and where they go from there. We, the Children's Advocacy Center, stay involved in the case in this way. Besides doing the interview, and besides our family care coordinator referring the family to where they can get help, mental health help, medical help, victim services, besides that, we also gather together what's called a multidisciplinary team, which is comprised of law enforcement, prosecutors, child protective services, mental health professionals, medical professionals, victim service professionals. And we meet at least once a month to go over all the cases that we've seen, all the interviews that we've done, to make sure that the child is being properly cared for, they're getting the help they need. We had one of those meetings this morning, and the people at the meeting, they were, child A, did they follow through with a referral over to the Crime Victim Center? Oh, yes, they came to see us. Oh, very good. That's what we like to hear. Child B, did they get that medical report? Oh, we haven't seen them. Oh, we need to follow up. We try to make sure that, that no child falls through the cracks.
It sounds like there's several agencies that you work in tandem with, whether it's OCY or Child Victims or Crime Victim Center and so on, right?
There are. That's the strength of what's called the CAC model. Ours is a response model. There are actually 800 child advocacy centers across the country.
Wow.
And this model says that the strength of the model is getting all the players together, all the various agencies to work with one another. So we work with every law enforcement agency in the county. We work with Child Protective Service, OCY. We work with the District Attorney's Office. We work with the Crime Victim Center. We work with what's called the Erie Care Clinic. I don't know if people are familiar with that or not, but it is a specialized clinic that's on the first floor of the McGee Hospital down for Hammett. And it's actually a satellite from UPMC Children's in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And they have people there who are experts in child abuse examinations. So they know what to look for. They know how to make sure the child is safe. And anything they do, if they find anything that they think looks suspicious, is then reviewed by the child abuse experts, the pediatricians at Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
So
sounds like we have a world-class approach to this issue.
We do. We do.
I mean, best in class, I should say.
It is, I think.
Yeah.
We've been around for 25 years now, the Child Advocacy Center. District Attorney Brad Foulk and a committee of people recommended its founding, and it was founded in 2001. And we've worked diligently to continue to strengthen it and to strengthen the connections with all of these other agencies throughout the years. We are accredited by a national body called the National Children's Alliance, and we're up for reaccreditation again this year. We just submitted our packet of information yesterday, quite honestly.
Wow.
So
you've been busy, huh?
It's always something to go.
Michael Gaines is with us. He's the executive director at the Bradley Foulk Children's Advocacy Center of Erie County. Time to take our break. It's 4:20 on Talk Erie. Michael Gaines is with us here from the Children's Advocacy Center here in Erie County, and it's National Child Abuse Prevention Month, recognizing the importance of families and communities working together to prevent child abuse and neglect. Michael, that kind of goes to what we were just saying off the air of being ahead of the game, of being a part of the prevention portion of this continuum, as opposed to kind of always being in a reactive state, huh? I mean,
absolutely. One of the reasons why the Children's Advocacy Center has the Period Purple Crying program I talked about earlier, and another program called the Adults and Children Together Raising Safe Kids program, ACT Raising Safe Kids, which is a parenting program for parents who have children aged 10 and under. And it's trying to help healthy families. We want to see healthy families. We want to see healthy communities. We want to help give people tools by which they can have a positive relationship with their children. Additionally to that, we try to get out at different events around the community whenever there's one of these. Maybe it's the community schools having one of those where they have everyone come with the tables or whatever. We always try to have people there because we want to get the word out to, that taking care of your children, being aware of where they are, what are they doing, who are they with, what's the situation. That's a way to keep them safe. I mean, child abusers don't wear signs. So it's a matter of knowing, what your children are about and who they are, and being that involved parent, involved grandparent, involved aunt or uncle to help make sure the kids stay safe. There's an old saying that somebody coined years ago, and it's been used by politicians, but it was, it takes a community to raise a child.
Right, the village.
That's true.
Yeah.
And the more that we have our people around us keeping an eye on our kids, the better we are. In another era, when we were younger, and people sat in their front porches, and we weren't all locked up or driving off into the suburbs where there's nobody out and about. People kept an eye on each other's kids. I mean, if you did something, got a little mischief, as a child, your parents knew about it before you got home.
That's exactly right.
And today I'm not sure that happens all the time, and it needs to. I mean,
isn't that just kind of being a part of being a good neighbor, or of loving your neighbor, of just kind of being aware of what's going on? Again, you don't have to be nosy, but you have to be alert.
Exactly. There's a line between being a nosy busybody, but to be a good neighbor, just to know what's going on, just in your neighborhood, that we have a lot of kids in the neighborhood where I live, and you just keep an eye that makes sure that no one's doing something dangerous. That they're playing on their bikes or whatever they're doing, that everyone's okay. And I know if the neighbor's out, any one of us are out, and a car comes down the road, you'll hear somebody yell "car," because they to get the kids off the road.
Yeah.
And those are just, that's not child abuse prevention, but it's keeping kids safe, and it works the same way to prevent child abuse. Is if we know where our kids are and what they're doing, and we have eyes on them and we care, the kids will stay much safer.
Talk about access to these resources, and really how much do that whole taking care of what do they call it, I'm losing it here, but like making sure that they have transportation and a roof over their head. How much of those basics, those basic needs come into play on whether or not children are protected from abuse?
Well, abuse happens in every social and demographic group, every economic group. So I don't want to say that just because somebody has
it wouldn't
those,
be causal. No.
But obviously, if a child doesn't have enough food or a safe place to stay or something, it puts them at more risk because they're going to be somewhere out in a less safe environment. Mm-hmm. Having said that, there are lots of folks who are in tough economic systems who take wonderful care of their children, 100%. And there's some people who are in, some of the higher echelons who they could pass their children in the street and probably don't know them almost. So it all depends on how you approach your children. But right. And maybe I'm being a little
no, but I think you're absolutely right. It's one of those things that is not hooked up. With the needs based, deal because it's more about the nurturing and the protection piece, right?
Absolutely. Now, having said that, I will say that if we have a situation where whatever social, economic, or demographic group you belong to, if somebody's into abusing drugs, if somebody's into other destructive personal things in their life, they're less likely to be attentive to their children, which means the children then become more possible victims of abuse. Maybe not from that person, but from if they're feeling like, no one cares about me, then they get themselves in bad situations.
Wow. Yeah.
That rolls that downhill too. They go looking for attention from somebody else if they're not getting the attention of the people that should love them.
We're with Michael Gaines here from the Children's Advocacy Center here in Erie, Pennsylvania. We're going to take our bottom of the hour news break. We'll talk about specifically protective factors on how we can have healthier and safer kids. Stay with us. Talk Erie and the Joel Natale show from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here. And it is an important month. It's a National Child Abuse Prevention Month here. And we've got Michael Gaines. He is with us from the Bradley Foulk Children's Advocacy Center of Erie County. Again, talking about this Child Abuse Awareness Month. And Michael, I wanted to kind of go into some of these protective factors. This is from the Child Welfare Information Gateway. I think it's kind of important because it goes to what you kind of introduced to us of being on the front end, of being, I mean, we're really talking about child abuse prevention.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Kind of not in reactive, but a proactive protective factor. And I'm a little acquainted with the 40 assets. You know, you have the protective factors, and then there's the ones that are the negative factors, right?
Yes.
But let's talk about this. One is called We Love Each Other, Nurturing and Attachment. It really starts with that parental connection with their child.
Well, it very much does. It's amazing how a lack of attachment, in those very early months and years, can set a child up for difficulties all throughout their life. Even if it's not child abuse, I sit on a committee that tries to look at children who are having problems and how to help them.
Okay.
And there are medical professionals and mental health professionals that are on that committee, and a number of other people like myself. But a couple of the doctors oftentimes will start asking questions about, all right, what was the child's home life like at the beginning thing? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it goes right back to the attachment and lack of attachment, which set the child up then for all kinds of issues in their life as they grow. I mean, and you hear some really terrible stories of that in the extreme when you get to an extreme case.
Yeah, I think this goes right into the second one. I can choose what works best for my children, or knowledge of parenting. If you didn't have a good model as your parent, you may not have the skill set to be a good parent.
We always say that unless you consciously decide to make some investment in learning parenting skills, you will parent the way you were parented, because that's just the automatic default. You know, when the push comes to shove and you need to make a decision because your child's in front of you and you need to react, you're going to do probably what your parent did, unless you've thought about it and chosen to do something else.
Yeah, it's not automatic. I mean, you could totally break that cycle.
You can.
But you have to be intentional, and getting some knowledge sounds like it's a good first step.
Absolutely, and there are a number of good parenting programs. We offer one of them, as I mentioned earlier, the ACT Raising Safe Kids program, and that's a wonderful, and it's a 9-week sessions, 2 hours at a time, and parents come together and they learn from each other as well as from our facilitator. And that's a program that was developed by the American Psychological Association, and we were happy to bring it to Erie about 5 years ago or so. But
do you have to? I mean, will parents come? Do you have to offer incentives? How does that all work?
We have to offer incentives.
You do. I mean,
do.
That's kind of typical, right?
It is. I mean, we offer an incentive if you complete the course. We do offer some food at the meetings and things.
Sure.
Most of our classes, I think, I've only 1 or 2 times have we had somebody who was told to come by, like, the court system or somebody like that.
Yeah.
But typically our people are self-selecting, and they're coming because they want to improve their parenting. And not that they were bad parents, maybe, or not that their parenting their parents weren't good, but they say, well, how can I do the best job I can do? Mm-hmm. And people, if they're interested in our program, our website or our social media, you can find the information on. We have programs that start up. You know, as I say, it's a 9-week program, and we run them continuously, pretty much. So there's always, we're either taking the registrations or we're ready to start, one or the other. But there's also other ones. I mean, there are several agencies around town that offer some great parenting programs. I think the Erie Family Center has a couple, and there are others.
And again, I know like they have a father's group at the Family Center that I'm acquainted with. I mean, there's just a lot of resources. This is the beauty about Erie. We are a resource-rich community for this kind of thing.
We are. We're very fortunate. I talk with my fellow Child Advocacy Center directors across the state. And for those who are in places that are not as blessed as we are to have all the various resources, sometimes it's really difficult. I was talking to somebody who, if they wanted to have their abused children even get the proper mental health care, they had to hire somebody themselves, find a way to raise the money to hire a therapist with the right training, because it takes specialized types of training to deal with abuse. It's different than just general counseling or something like that.
Wow. Let's go to another one here. I like this one. I deserve self-care. The protective factor is parental resilience. Here's where concerned other adult can really play a role, like a grandmother or a friend or a sister or brother, where you could give the break to the parent so that they could get some self-care and build on their resiliency. What do you think about that?
I think that anytime the parents can have resources that help them in doing what they need to do and help them to be good, balanced people, it's a good thing. It's always the two sides to every coin.
Sure.
Good self-care, good and ability to have somebody who is your safety net around you. Families used to do that for each other automatically in the day, but now we're oftentimes miles and miles away from our families. So we have to find these things. That's all wonderful, and it's good, and it's healthy, and it's needed. What is bad is when somebody says, well, I need my own me time, and they don't have anyone else. So what they do is they neglect the children and just say, I'm going to do my own thing and forget about them. That doesn't work. So, it's that doing the appropriate thing.
Yeah.
But everyone needs to have somebody support them. Just take a page out of the other end of life. I've had relatives, et cetera, who were in need of supportive care, at the end of life, whether it be nursing home or whether it be assisted living or whatever it is, and sometimes even just what they called respite care, where there's a family member caring for another family member, but there's something that they need a little bit of a break, or they have maybe there's a family wedding, they need to go out of town or whatever, but there's somebody, someplace where that relative that needs the constant care can be cared for on a short-term basis. That's not a bad model. We need to think about that in terms of, and that's what families automatically do for each other if they're around. But how do we build those if we don't have family around us?
This is a good segue to this. We are connected. The protective factor is social connections, and this kind of brings up some of these great parenting groups or moms group. I think about Erie Moms.
Yeah.
That is that great group that Amanda Burlingham runs. Church groups and things, MOPS, and just to be connected with people that are in the same life season as you, and you have a social connection.
I think that's extremely important, and I'm going to put a little pitch in for. I think one very great place of support, if one is engaged and involved, are churches.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think, we hear today in the statistics that there's a fairly large number of people who don't identify with any church community and they don't go. You're missing a lot of support that could be there for you, just besides the spiritual side of it and the God side of it. Just the human support you're missing that those church communities make as well.
Yeah. So again, going to Sunday school, making that connection, small groups or Bible studies or what have you.
Yes.
A lot of great places where you can get that social connection. And let's not forget about the gentlemen. Again, do you connect with your buddies over a golf game or what have you, bowling league or whatever, and just. Yeah. Hey, let me tell you what my kid is doing. It concerns me. Or let me tell you how cool this moment was with me and my son or daughter.
That brings up the old stereotype joke, though, that the two guys were out golfing, and the one guy, a funeral went by, and the one guy stopped and took his hat off, and the other guy said, "Oh my, what was that?" He said, "Well, I thought I should do something. I was married to her for 40 years." And the other guy said, "I never even knew you were married."
Sometimes you don't know. Yeah.
What I'm saying is sometimes the guys don't share the stuff they should share with each other, and they need to do that too. Guys really break down those walls and talk to each other. You can give each other lots of good advice, more than just how to fix the drain in the plug shower.
For sure. Here's one more protective factor. I help my child learn social skills, and talking about social emotional competence. Yeah, I mean, again, the parent is the great imprinter of how a child's gonna live in the world and act at school and so on.
Parents, just by their example, do so much to set their child up for success or for struggle in social situations. The more that we can model good things and our kids see it, kids learn from what they see much more than what we tell them, and they're like sponges that absorb stuff. They don't miss much of anything. Ask any kindergarten teacher or first or second grade teacher. They know more about what goes on in your home than you ever think they do, because those little kids see everything, and they go home and go to school and tell the teacher. But it's, so we need to make sure that and sometimes we have to intentionally tell kids how to react. I mean, how to act in the situation. I think, I know I was taught by my parents that if you go somewhere and you say please and you say thank you and you wait to be invited to grab the piece of candy or whatever it is, of how they proper manners and all that stuff. That's those are all things that they learn from their parents. Another quick funny story is when I was a kid, I had a relative that was a sister, a religious sister, and she was coming to visit, and so my mother was teaching me all this little thing I was supposed to say when she showed up, and so she was delayed in the travel. They in those days they didn't drive themselves, and she was delayed. But when she arrived, my father and my uncle were sitting on the front porch, and the first thing that my uncle did was jump up and take his cap off and stick out his hand and say, good afternoon, sister. And so I took off my cap and stuck out my hand and said, good afternoon, sister. Exactly what I saw. All that stuff they taught me to do or whatever went out the window because I did what I saw.
Yeah. Wow. Michael Gaines is with us here from the folks that are keeping our children safe, the Children's Advocacy Center of Erie County. I want you to weigh in on what do you think the big takeaways that you wish both families and that agencies and really public officials and people that are leaders in our community need to know about your work and about the state of children and in this community? Again, that's a big question, but what are our big takeaways? What are the bullet points that we need to know?
Well, there's several things. First of all, I would like to emphasize the fact that the majority of abuse happens from people that are known and trusted. And because if we don't have our guard up there, and again, not unnecessary distance, but just a guard, we're going to miss important things. Abusers tend to do what's called grooming activities. So if you see somebody paying what seems like inappropriate attention to a child, it probably is, and it's good to check out what's going on there. I wish people would know that in general. I wish people would understand how much child abuse actually gets investigated in Erie County every year. I did a little look. The last state statistics that are out are for 2024. The 2025s aren't out yet. But the 2024, in Erie County, there were over 1,200 reports made to Childline.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't mean every one of those was a case of abuse. But there were 1,200 concerned people who put out a situation.
Well, that's over 3 a day, basically.
It is. And, I know that our Erie police who deal with these things, And again, every case is not a child abuse I mean, you look in it and see, and many cases are not. But I know that they had cleared over 600 reports last year.
Do they have specialists? Do any of the law enforcement agencies have specialists in this field?
Yes. We have, Erie has detectives who are dedicated to child abuse, and we make sure they get special training. They're actually co-located with us in our building.
Wow. Okay.
The Erie District Attorney's Office has what's called the Erie County Detectives, and there's a county detective, a couple of them actually, who have training in this area. And some of the other larger departments have somebody who knows what they're doing, Mill Creek and some of the others around. Some of the very small departments, perhaps, they don't really, and they'll call on
state
the others.
Police,
Definitely
barracks,
state police
yeah.
have, yes. We definitely have state police troopers who have been trained and know what to do with this. And actually, the current lieutenant who's in charge of the crimes division, before being promoted up to that level, was involved as a member of a multidisciplinary team at a child advocacy center in a different part of the state.
Oh wow! Okay.
So I mean, we have expert people that do know around.
So the scope is much larger than you would think.
Oh, that's my point. Is that again, I don't want to say anything here that would offend anybody because I'm certainly 100% behind the folks who are very concerned when we see some poor animal hurt. But what I don't think we realize is there's children in that same situation that need to be protected. I mean, and part of that is because the children's cases, typically you don't get them out in public because you want to protect the identity of the children.
Sure, yeah.
So you can't get that out in the public like you do in other situations of things that happen around town. Even things that aren't child abuse, but are just terrible tragedies that we would love to see. We're working on a program. We don't have it together yet, but to try to prevent baby deaths from co-sleeping and those sort of things, because we've seen too many child deaths. And again, these are not abuse; these are accidents, but happen over the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, there was one summer, I think we had 6, and just across the summer,
just getting smothered or something.
Yeah,
from
I
a
mean,
co-sleep.
exactly, and
Wow.
and that sometimes is affected by situations, because if a family, for example, it's a hot summer and they only have a window air conditioner in one room in the house, so they're all camped out in the same room.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, because the space is so tight, somebody accidentally rolls over onto somebody or whatever. Wow. You don't want to see anything like that happen. Yeah. And we're just trying to figure out how to try to do something to educate parents again, because that's who you need to talk to.
If you are concerned of perhaps encountering a case of abuse, what's the phone number to call?
Again, you can call Childline, state of Pennsylvania. It's 1-800-932-0313. You can call Erie County Office of Children and Youth, and I don't have their number memorized, unfortunately. You can call your local law enforcement.
I got it for you.
Okay.
814-451-6600.
That's it, 451-6600. There's always somebody that will answer. You can also call your local law enforcement agency. Obviously, if a child's in imminent danger, call 911.
Yeah.
But if it's not imminent danger, call the non-emergency number, but talk to a detective, and they will get looked into. Every case gets looked at if there's a report made, because we want to make sure children are safe. Michael
Gaines from the Children's Advocacy Center here in Erie County. Their website, cacerie.org. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure to be here.
Appreciate it. It is 6 minutes in front of 5 o'clock.